So in today's video, we're going to talk about why mothers should train self-defense with their daughters. In a lot of the classes I teach, especially for women's self-defense, I'll get a lot of teenage girls coming to take the class that their parents had signed them up for. But the parents themselves, especially the moms, a lot of times won't take the training for themselves. And I think it's very important that the mothers train with their daughters. There's a few reasons for this. One, moms, you need it too. The current statistic is that 1 in 5 women within their lifetime will be sexually assaulted or attempted rape or raped. That's 1 in 5. That's a pretty big number, and it's pretty horrible. If you go to rain.org, and I'll try to insert a link somewhere in this content, that about 15% of those who are victimized are between the ages of 12 and 17, and then 54% are between the ages of 18 and 34. So now we're starting to get into that young mother age range. Of course, this number is also high because that's college age. But then another 28%, almost somewhere between a quarter and a third of the women who are attacked are between the ages of 35 and 64. That's you, moms. So it's not a matter of, well, I'm older, so I'm not as attractive, or I'm already married, I have kids. Those are not protections. And then finally, 3% is 65 and older. So moms, you make up over a quarter of the people who are victimized usually, or targeted. So you need this training just as much as your daughters. Here's a little sidebar that often doesn't get talked about when we talk about women's self-defense, is it's not just sexual assault or rape. Sometimes it's muggings and robberies. Sometimes you're just attacked on the street. There's no sexual component. You're just a target of opportunity. And so you need to be able to protect yourself from that as well. Another factor for these young women who are coming to the class, there may be a factor, okay, mom signed me up for this. I didn't sign up for myself. So a lot of times these young teenage girls are basically told to come to a class or go to a class, and the mothers don't attend that class with them. And so there's this small, subtle thought of, well, it's good enough for me, but not for you. And so they're less likely, if they don't sign up for themselves, they're less likely to be engaged with the material being taught. And so they're going to learn less, and they're going to be less capable should something bad happen. So it's important for the moms to be there as well, because then they see, okay, she's making me take this class, but she's taking it too, so maybe it is important. Another good reason is it's a bonding experience between mother and daughter. And tied to that, really to me, one of the biggest or one of the most important reasons that moms and daughters should take a class together is if something bad were to happen to either one, but we're focusing on the teenage daughters here, if something bad were to happen to them, they need a support system. And one of the big things I try to teach in my class is to start that conversation. It's actually the homework assignment when we take a lunch break. This conversation has to be started because there have been several cases where a woman was raped and their mother didn't believe them, or their mother blamed them, which is worse. I read about one case where a young woman in college was raped. She told her parents, told her mom, one of the people in her life that she'd be able to trust without question, told her she shouldn't have dressed a certain way, or she shouldn't have behaved a certain way. And that's victim blaming. Rape is never the victim's fault. Tied to that, because when a woman is raped, 75% of the time, she knows who her attacker is. It's someone known to her. It may be someone known to the family. And so if they say, okay, John Smith raped me, But previously, y'all, the girl and John Smith were friends. The mother's going to be less she's not going to believe that as well. These daughters, they need to know that you as parents have their back. They need that support. I mean, it's already bad enough. If they got raped, that's already bad enough. Then having to go through all, reliving and retelling the story over and over again to medical professionals, to the police, to lawyers, to, if there's a trial, to whoever's in the courtroom, other lawyers, getting cross-examined, having to tell the story over and over again. It can be very traumatic, and it's a very hard process. So they need all the support they can get. And so that's why this conversation has to start early, and hopefully before anything bad has happened. And then, if you're watching this video, moms, dads, whoever, daughters, share this with the people in your support system so that you can start that process. And this is like having insurance. I mean, if you can avoid a car wreck, that's the best scenario, and that's why you get training, so you learn how to avoid bad situations. You know how to defend yourself should something start to happen. But the support system is the insurance policy in case something goes wrong. The reason that mothers and daughters should take a class to help augment that conversation is that the support system, that conversation can start with a real education. A real self-defense education. Again, go to RAIN.org to educate yourself in the realities of this problem of sexual assault and rape. And whoever else is in your support system, maybe friends, share it with your friends, so that if something were to happen, especially for college-age women, you may be away from home, share this with your friends so they know, hey, I need to be part of your support system, you can be part of mine. That education needs to happen because a lot of that stuff is misunderstood, because it's not a comfortable subject, so people don't really like to talk about it. But it needs to be talked about. I know for me, like growing up in the 90s in a rural area in Alabama, there was no sex education, no real sex education. So, going out into the world with no real knowledge, I had to learn it for myself. Research, study, but no one ever taught me really. The sex education I grew up with was, if you have sex before you're married, you will get diseases and die. It was really, based in fear mongering, not based in fact, not an honest conversation. My parents never had the talk with me, the birds and bees talk. I think it's getting better. At least the sex education in schools, I think, is getting better, but still, those conversations need to happen with the family. Even if they're awkward, even if they're a little uncomfortable, but they're necessary. They need to happen. And it needs to be based in fact, and you need to be honest about things. Don't lie and say, okay, sex is horrible. Because here's the thing. You can either have kids that go out into the world with no sex education, nothing based on knowledge and fact, and they go out and just take their chances. Well, that biological drive to propagate the species is there, whether you like it or not. So they can either go out with that biological drive and have some education to temper it, or they can just take their chances, which is the smarter choice here. So those are a few thoughts. If you like what you hear, please feel free to share it, subscribe, like it, and please comment. And we'll see you in the next video. Thanks.